It's the Locked On Flyers podcast for Friday, June 28th, your daily dose of Flyers news, analysis, and high quality content. I cannot believe it. It's finally here. Draft day is here.
You're Locked On Flyers, your daily podcast on the Philadelphia Flyers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, and thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen every day. I am Rachel Donner. You can find me on Twitter at @rmiriam. I'm here as always with Russ Cohen, who's on all your favorite social media apps at Sportsology. We are at Locked On Flyers on Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, and Twitter as well. You can find us over on YouTube or on the SiriusXM app or anywhere you listen to podcasts. Subscribe to get our latest episode as soon as it's available. Here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. You may notice that I am not with Russ Cohen for this one segment. He had some travel delays, so my good pal Gil Martin from the Locked On NHL podcast is helping out to talk NHL Awards. And it was a pretty, I would say, expected results to these awards, right, Gil?
Yeah, more or less. I think this is what we were expecting. And you know what? You like the occasional surprise, but you want the most deserving people to win. And I think in most instances here, that is more or less what we got.
Yeah, I think so. Nathan MacKinnon, of course, getting both the Ted Lindsay and the Hart trophies. So people inside hockey love him. People outside of hockey love him. It was well-deserved, though, because, he was near the top of the charts with all of the scoring stats this season and was a huge part of the Colorado Avalanche success during the regular season.
No doubt about it. He really was almost in a class by himself at times this year. You look at those numbers, it's hard to ignore. And I prefer and truly do like when you have the Hart Trophy and the Lindsay Award won by the same person. It puts a certain amount of certainty to it.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think that it just makes sense. And I think it was the right way to go.
Yeah, no, I have to agree. And congratulations, obviously, to Nathan MacKinnon for those two well-deserved awards. Turning to goaltenders, the Vezina, no big surprise there either. Winnipeg's Connor Hellebuck winning the award. And he has been at or near the top now for how many years?
It just seems like every year he's in
He's in contention. He's a finalist or a winner. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, it must be so challenging. I mean, don't get me wrong. He's had a tremendous career. He's one of the most incredible goaltenders to watch. He has had a very difficult, burden to shoulder for many years with the Winnipeg Jets in terms of facing a ton of shots. He's always up to the challenge. And yet, he just doesn't have a team that gets him beyond that. And you have to think there has to be a little bit of bittersweetness to all this.
Yeah, you don't want to get the feeling you're winning the Vezina in spite of your teammates. Right? He does carry that team to a large extent and means so much to their success. But certainly, in my mind, just well-deserved. Like I said, he is in contention seemingly every year. And congratulations to Hellebuck for winning. The Norris Trophy, turning our attention to defensemen. Will this get renamed the Hughes Family Trophy at some point?
Well, it's possible, I guess. But it is good to see Quinn Hughes win this one. Well-deserved. I think that, the Canucks were such a surprising team this season, and Quinn Hughes was such a huge part of it. And, despite how good he is, a lot of the Hughes attention was in New Jersey simply because there's two of them. And the fact that Quinn was able to have such a tremendous season. And, I think Roman Josi got a lot of votes, but it wasn't close in terms of the first place vote at all. it was like 172 first place votes for Quinn Hughes and 12 for Roman Josi. So it was like very clear amongst voters that this was the way they wanted to go.
Yeah, no doubt about that. I mean, Roman Josi was deserving of being a finalist. He certainly had an outstanding year, but he was sort of the consensus number two.
Yep.
And in my mind, Quinn Hughes definitely deserved that Norris Trophy this year, and the Calder Trophy, such a surprise. I think
Oh, I am shocked.
everybody knew where we were going with this, and you know hard to argue with Connor Bedard getting the award, even though he did miss, a fairly significant number of games due to injury.
Yeah, and that's probably why Brock Faber got 42 first place votes, right?
Yeah.
Which is not nothing. This isn't a landslide. I mean, it's a huge margin here, but I think the fact that Brock Faber got as many as 42 first place votes has something to do with the time missed. But I do have to mention that Tyson Forster came in 7th and Sam Urson came in 10th in the voting here. So Flyers new kids were not left out of the conversation entirely, but I do think that it was a pretty representative vote of the options there, with Luke Hughes coming in 3rd, Kochetkov coming in 4th, and Logan Cooley coming in 5th. I honestly, I can't argue with that.
Yeah, no, it's very difficult to argue with that, and again, I really think the voters got it right across the board this year, and it's encouraging when you see that. I mean, controversy is good too, but I like it when the voters are, in my mind, I'm not angry or frustrated or saying, how did they vote for this guy? Most of these votes really do make sense.
Yep, I think so as well.
And there were a number of awards that were already announced a little bit earlier. You had the Masterton Trophy going to Connor Ingram, formerly the Arizona Coyotes, now of the Utah Hockey Club. We know that Alexander Barkov again wins the Selke Trophy. Your thoughts about some of these awards that were previously announced?
Again, makes total sense. You don't really discuss the Masterton. Everybody is well deserved there. Barkov is a no-brainer for the Selke. And I think winning a Stanley Cup was just an extra icing on the cake of that award, as he showed in the playoffs, even though this is a regular season award. So yeah, I think all the skaters were awarded appropriately.
Now, is Rick Tocchet, who won the Jack Adams Award, there's sort of like a jinx attached to it. How do you feel about that one?
I think that's fine. I think it makes sense considering the expectations of the Canucks season going into the season versus how it turned out. I think Rick Tocchet did a tremendous job with this team.
Got to agree there. And I have to give a shout out to Islanders captain Anders Lee winning the King Clancy Award for what he did in the community. Now, the NHL also announcing the first and second team all-star rosters and announcing as well the all-rookie team. First team all-stars, Nathan MacKinnon at center, Artemi Panarin at left wing, Nikita Kucherov at right wing. The defensemen are Roman Josi and Quinn Hughes, and Connor Hellebuck is the goalie. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. It is weird. Like, I think you think Kucherov and Panarin, both of them had tremendous seasons, right? And again, you got to put yourself in regular season mode to answer these. And I think they're well deserved. It just feels like the two of them were so like out of the conversation toward the tail end of the playoffs that you're like, oh, right, these guys are great hockey players and they had great seasons.
You kind of forget. Yeah.
You kind of forget. But
second
it is well deserved.
Second team, Connor McDavid is the center. Philip Forsberg on the left wing. David Pasternak on the right. Cale Makar and Adam Fox on defense. And Thatcher Demko getting the second team all-star nod in goal.
Yep. The bridesmaid team, as they say. And yeah, I think, it's interesting having Connor McDavid as the second team all-star here when he
Yep.
just won the Conn Smythe, but again, regular season. And
Yes.
it
Stick
I
stick to
think
that regular season, and to say that he was the second best center in hockey this year, and that could almost be considered an off year for him, and this was not
I
an off.
know. I
But
know.
no doubt, all rookie team: Logan Cooley, Connor Bedard, and Marco Rossi are the forwards. Brock Faber and Luke Hughes on the blue line, and Peter Kochetkov is the all rookie goalie. I know you were a little disappointed in some of the voting, but your thoughts?
I mean, it makes sense. I'm not going to argue with it, but I would have liked to see Sam Emerson or Tyson Forrester crack this, but when push comes to shove, like they don't belong there. I do know that. But good to see Tyson Forrester get some of the votes there and Sam Emerson as well.
Yeah, good to see that. And again, I think the voters more or less got it right. I like also the fact that they just do forwards as opposed to trying to slot in a center and a left wing and a right wing for the all rookie team. You want the best players represented, and I think that's the best way to do it.
Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every day or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home those huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Of course, next week on the show, we'll have all of the draft reactions from all of the picks. Plus, we're going to be looking at free agency. We know the Flyers aren't going to be super busy, so they say, but you never know what
Well,
kind
there's
of
gonna be dev
any.
camp. I mean,
Yep,
I'll be busy.
yep, there'll be all of that coming up next week as well. So, I think thinking about Danny Briere a lot around this draft. At least I have been, because I feel like this is a pivotal moment for him as GM because he's not the rookie anymore, right? He's got
No.
a year under his belt, and this is when he really needs to start establishing himself as a mainstay GM here. And you have to think that this draft in particular is very important to him as GM and to this rebuild and this plan that they've been very loud about over the last year, this new era of Orange, right?
Yeah. So, getting past that new era of orange, now, you have Mitchkov here. So that makes things different. It makes things different because now John Tortorella was probably thinking, all right, in the last year of my deal, I can deal with the kid, whatever. Now he's got to deal with him now. He probably was not planning on that. So that's going to change the way his job is. He may not he'll say it's going to be the same, but it's not. There's going to be differences, and there could be, some strife over that. So that's gonna be different, and Danny's going to have to deal with that. Like he didn't have to deal with much of that last year. They could ride the wave of John
Right.
and support him 100%, and there's no problem. Now depends how it goes. You got to see how it goes. If it's all positive, hey, it's great. Then there's no worries. If there's a little rockiness, then there's going to be some things that behind the scenes may need fixing. And as far as the draft, yes, this is a situation now where Danny is going through a second one with the team he's got, and he could start to look at things and see if they're really meeting goals or not at the draft. Not that development, it's early for development, but just for the types of players they want, for who they're choosing, for how they look when they show up, all those things. There's things that they could, glean and kind of see. And for honestly, for people in the organization, uh, Danny could start evaluating them and really seeing who's helping me, who isn't, what's going good, what isn't going good. he should be doing all of that because, things are just going to get tougher from here on in. Like that whole honeymoon phase is over.
Right. The expectations go up. And I think if you're looking at this year's draft in particular, these are players that are going to have to be making an impact when the Flyers are kind of hitting their stride and starting to really become contenders, right? In theory,
Yes.
they when these players hit in 3 to 4 years, right?
Yep.
So these players that we don't even know who they are yet are going to have to be a huge part of this rebuild. And that's why I think this year to a large degree and next year to a maybe next year's draft is going to be kind of the fill in the blanks, right? Kind of
Yeah.
guys. This year they're going to have to be a big part of the core of this team, especially these first round picks. So I think there's a lot of pressure on Briere and Brent Flair, to be honest, on making these picks and making them count.
No, I think Brent does have a lot of pressure because Danny now could look at him after a couple drafts and, really kind of see what he's got.
So, like, how do the Flyers maximize the impact of this draft class, given that they are going to, in theory, have to be a big part of this rebuild?
Well, I mean, player development, they should have added some more things to player development. We'll see. Some of it gets hidden behind the scenes, so I can't always notice it, but how they work out and certain things when certain, I pay a lot of attention to that. So I'm going to look for certain layers of player development that are added and haven't been there before. I'm going to look and ask players certain questions to see if things have changed. Because honestly, you can't just keep riding it the way it was because player development hasn't been good enough. It's been okay. That's it. It's been okay, but it's not been good enough. And it's not been good enough for to turn into like a championship organization. So that's where I'm going to see is what they're doing with that. Because again, like I brought up on the show the other day, there is no cap on player development.
Absolutely. I think that is going to be a huge part of it. Looking at even last year's picks, beyond Mitchkov to this year's picks and next year's picks, the development on these guys has to go off without a hitch. And you never know. And that's why you have a bunch of picks in the draft. That's why there's 7 rounds to the draft, right? But I think that you look at, what has to happen for the Flyers to become a success. They have to do it by drafting and developing for the most part and just trading for a couple of key pieces. And that's been the recipe for success in the NHL for the most part. I think, you get into these copycat situations where maybe a team once does a lot of trades to make it happen.
You can't copy what Bill Zito did. You can't.
No, you
nobody
can't.
should try and copy that. I think that's unsustainable. It worked for them. It's not going to work for everybody. It depends on the cap. It depends on the players. It depends on what you have in your cupboard. All of that matters. And right now, I don't think they're at that spot where they should, even be thinking about that.
Yeah. So it's the draft and development method that's got to work for the Flyers
now.
here.
At some point, it'll change. Drafting is always important, and developing is always important. Those two things always have to get better. But after a while, yes, they will trade some guys. They will trade some assets, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. That's why you build them up.
Right. So I think keeping an eye on player development is going to be a key part of that. But I think, what this means for the Flyers overall is I don't think the Flyers have to make a splash the way they did last year because the Mitchkov pick was obviously a huge deal and for many reasons. And, we've talked about that ad nauseum, but they made some really great picks aside from that with Bonk and Barkey. And I just think they had a really good draft last year overall. And so they have to have that similar level of draft this year in order to keep this going. But not expecting somebody like Mitchkov to drop to them, which is a hard thing to do.
Right. No, they shouldn't expect someone like Mitchkov to drop to them, but they have to get past the point where they're just getting 2 every draft. Like that is the minimum. That's what teams have to do. That's what you got to do to sort of keep your job. But they have to accelerate that. They have to have a few drafts like we had on the board the other day, and where you're getting 3 or 4 players. They have to have those.
Yep.
That's how you all of a sudden can spend money on free agents or make trades for high price guys because you have more ELC guys. That's how you have
Right.
to do it.
Yeah. So we got to make sure that they're picking guys who are going to hit this time around. It seems like we'll have 2 or 3 hit from last year, but I think this is just a huge year for Danny Briere as an NHL GM. So I all the best of luck to him. Keeping our fingers crossed that tonight is a good night for them. In the meantime, we asked all of y'all out there about what you think the Flyers should do in order to get a center to support Matvei Michkov and the team overall. We're going to get into those poll results coming up next.
I love sports. I love them so much I never want them to stop. But as the playoffs wind down, we get fewer games, and the sports aren't sporting like I want them to. But FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open the app and dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a booster bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. Go with the Phillies. I think they're going to, be pretty easy winners over the Marlins. So head over to fanduel.com/lockedon and start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball.
So, looking at these poll results from all of y'all out there, a lot of voting on this one. You love to see it. So, we asked you if you wanted to see the Flyers move up in the draft or trade for a center, but you can't do both. And so, your options were move up in the draft from 12 to get a center, move up in the draft from the Florida pick at 32 to get a center, trade for a center, or stay put and do nothing. And the top vote getter was move up from 12 at 35%, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, I'm happy to see that. I feel like that's more achievable than the trading for a center. But it may not be a great move up. It may only be a couple spots. It might just be one spot. It might be just swapping with the Sabres. But I think that's the right answer.
Yeah, I think that the fact that it was so close to trade for a center says a lot with 33%. It's only 2% off between those two options. And those obviously are your two main options, and you can't do both. And the fact that there was such a close split with moving up, having the edge, I it kind of mimics where I am, right? In terms of what is the right option here for
Yeah.
this team.
Yeah, and and staying put has 21%. That's fine. I like that option. I don't mind that at all. And then moving up from the Florida pick 11%, like that one, because you're going to spend assets to get a marginally better player unless there's someone you feel like you have value to the point where nobody else has valued this pick that high and that guy's still on the board, then okay, fine. There's that rare situation.
Right. And, moving up from the Florida pick to get a center was only at 11%. I think that is the lesser of the options here
Yeah,
because the kind of center that you're going to get isn't going to be good enough, in my opinion.
right. No, and I agree with that. I think for the most part, that's true.
Yeah. I think, looking at the comments here overall, I think that everybody's sort of in agreement that we do need that center, which is a good thing,
Hmm.
that we have to get there somewhere, that what we have just isn't good enough. But that maybe, the priority is to really find one that matches up with Mitchkov in particular, I think is good, that everybody's on the same page about that as well.
Yeah. I do again want to say that yes, Danny Briere is doing a good job. He's doing a better job than Chuck Fletcher. Ron Hextall did a good job. Ron Hextall was just a bad communicator. But if you, look at what he and Chris Pryor did in the draft and all of that, it was good. Now, you can rip him for a couple bad contracts. Every GM has a couple bad contracts. But all I'm telling you is a lot of those drafts that we were talking about getting players on the board, and you want to talk about players that are in the Flyers lineup, it was drafted during that administration. So you can't just say that administration was terrible. I disagree with that.
One of the trade options that came up was for trading TK to Ottawa and the 12th pick for Pinto and the 7th pick and the 25th pick, which isn't there anymore, right? That's now Boston's. So I think even for Pinto and the 7 pick, I don't think Ottawa does that.
Yeah, I'm looking. What's his contract situation? Oh, he's a 1-year deal and he's still an RFA, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's break this down. On paper, right now, yeah, it seems like it could be doable. Obviously, Pinto's a lot younger, and Pinto's a center, but you're going to have to give him a contract next year. Now you're getting a guy that you have to sign. Not that you don't have to sign TK, but you know what TK is and how he fits in. You don't know how Shane Pinto is going to fit in. You've traded TK, who's a known commodity, and now you're getting somebody that you hope serves the purpose. But if he doesn't serve the purpose, you still have to pay him, or you're going to have to trade him. And then you've diminished what you've gotten for TK. So I think if you trade TK, you've got to get somebody more established. I like Shane Pinto, but he hasn't done enough.
Yeah, I feel like right now I'm in the I'd rather go with the devil I know option than the one I don't.
Right.
And I know Travis Konechny. I don't know Shane Pinto in terms of exactly what his future might hold. And I think I could predict Travis Konechny's a little bit better.
Right.
I think the other set of comments that I thought was interesting on this poll was from Clean Danglers, who obviously he wants Catton, which I do not disagree, but we don't think that there's a good option for him to be available. But really to focus on if draft who you can at this point and use that 12th pick to get the center.
But you can't force it. Like,
right.
If Catton's gone and Hellenius is gone and Lidstrom's gone, it's a different kind of center that you're getting. Like, I love Sasha Bovair, but he's not a top line center. So, at that point, you're probably not getting a top line center. The odds are way against you. So then why are you continuing to worry about drafting center at that spot? You might as well go draft a defenseman because you still need that too. Get a higher grade defenseman and then go get a center. And if he surprises you, great. But chances are he's going to surprise you for being somewhere between the second and fourth line. It's still not the first line, but at least then you went and got the high grade defenseman.
Right. Is it too late to try and wait till next year to draft that high end center though?
Well, it depends. If they have a bad year and they're drafting in the top 5, then no. If they have the kind
Which
of year
we do not wish on them.
No. But if they have the kind of year that they had this year and they're drafting 12th, I can't foresee right now. I haven't analyzed it enough to tell you for sure. I really haven't. But I just, from a standpoint of just throwing it out there, I would hesitate.
Yeah, I think so. It's just it is very interesting, in terms of what the right answer is here, because as we've said, and as we've been saying in this conversation, even you go for best available player, right? And if it's a defenseman, you got to take the defenseman if that defenseman is so far ahead of the pack as far as the centers go.
Where they are on the board, yeah.
But they so desperately need that center. And with Michkov coming now, like, I do think that Frost and Couturier as a backup are good enough to have around for Michkov for at least one season, if not 2. So I'm not desperate at this point, which leads me to believe that you just still go for best available. But it's going to be an issue, I think, in 2 years.
Yeah, I think so. And that's what you're looking at. But I also think next year, if they wanted to do a package of, one of those first, a second or something to try and move up next year to get, a better center who might even be able to come to the NHL quicker, that might be more achievable. But I don't know that yet. I'm really haven't analyzed that draft.
Yeah, well, maybe the 21% who said stay put and use the existing first round picks have it right. We'll find out what happens at tonight's draft and for the first round, and then tomorrow for the second round. We'll have reactions to all of those picks on our YouTube channel first. So make sure you are subscribed there. Thanks for listening today and all this week. We'll be back next week with all that draft recap, free agency, and dev camp, as we mentioned earlier. As a reminder, we always want to hear from you. If you've got mailbag questions, you can let us know on Twitter at Locked On Flyers. You can email us at lockedonflyers@gmail.com or comment over on YouTube. I'm Rachel. I'm on Twitter at rmiriam. That's RMIRIAM.
I'm Russ. I'm at Sportsology, SPORTSOLOGY.
Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube that's also available on Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering top sports stories of the day with local experts of Locked On, plus national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today, now available on the free Fire TV channels app. Have a great day and a great draft, Flyers.